What's up, everyone? This is Esoteric Creator, and you're listening to another issue of Panel to Panel, brought to you by our YouTube channel, Thought Balloon. Of course, this is a podcast where we talk about last week's comic book releases. By the way, there will be spoilers, comic book news, and what's happening in comic book related pop culture. We're first going to start off in the House of Ideas known as Marvel. The first issue we're looking at is Star-Lord and Kitty Pryde number 2. As the synopsis goes, the most legendary star-crossed lovers in the Marvel Universe crash land on Battleworld. Star-Lord and Age of Apocalypse Kitty Pryde wage love and secret war. Will love tear us apart again? With this issue, I made a couple of notes. One of them being that since we're working with the Age of Apocalypse Kitty Pryde, she's very much a killer. A lot like Wolverine, hint, hint. Anyone who's ever read the original Saga would understand why. And this isn't this is for the greater good kind of killing. This isn't I'm killing someone for a loved one. This is, I'm killing someone because if I don't, I'm going to be found out. And what you end up finding out in this issue is that her department and another department within Doom's court are pretty much at odds. And if one found out the other, then they would have issues. So any threat of being found out has to be taken care of according to her. This in turn freaks out Peter Quill, because this obviously is not the Kitty Pryde that he knows from his previous universe. But that does not stop him and Kitty Pryde from having a slight moment. So this issue really takes that relationship not to the next level, but it inches you a little bit closer to something that could be romantic. It really puts the characters at quite a predicament at the end, courtesy of Gambit. So I implore everyone to continue reading, especially with that cliffhanger. You really do want to see where the story is going to take you next. The next issue is A-Force number 3. According to the synopsis, She-Hulk has violated the most sacred rule of Battleworld, and now A-Force is on the run from the planet's protectors, the Thor Corps. And while trying to prove her innocence, She-Hulk discovers that one of her own may have engineered her downfall. What I really took away from this issue was one of the portals that She-Hulk originally she finds herself in this dystopian Manhattan, and whenever she tries to jump through a portal that what I call her universe Kitty Pryde, even though technically no one has proven that's her yet, but as she's jumping through this portal, she sees all of the domains, or maybe, just maybe, the spark that may have started Battleworld. But of course, I leave this up to the audience. If you have a different theory of what she's actually seeing as she's jumping through that portal, feel free to leave a comment below. But as she's jumping through that portal in order to find a way to prove her innocence, I guess you can say, or if anything, she's going to start leading a rebellion whenever the Thor Corps came and started laying the hammer down. No pun intended. Unfortunately, She-Hulk didn't really know how to handle the Thor Corps, nor the will of God Doom, as it were. So it's left on Medusa's shoulders to bear the weight, and she does so happily, almost in a way that seems like it's almost kind of a betrayal at one point. But of course, going up against the Thor Corps is not something that just anybody can do, so therefore Medusa bites it for the team. But this of course propels all of A-Force not only against the Thor Corps, but maybe against Doom himself, in which case they find a hiding place within, again, I call her universe Kitty Pryde. Again, that's just a theory. Feel free to prove me wrong. But otherwise, this is leading up to a battle on many fronts that Doom is gonna have to fight at some point, it seems, and we'll find out more as we keep going throughout these noteworthy issues. But if you have a theory about this issue, feel free to comment in the comments below. The next book I read that is noteworthy is Ghost Racers number 3. According to the synopsis, it reads, "The real death race begins here. Robbie Reyes is a fugitive. Can the all-new Ghost Rider outrace his doomed destiny? And what kind of vengeance will Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, Alejandra Blaze, Slade, and Zero Cochrane unleash upon him?" That's my movie voice. All kidding aside, so far this series has been absolutely brutal. It kind of reminds me of kind of that raw brutality of Mad Max, either the most recent or the old. But I mean, this series has been nothing short of, I want to say heart racing, but I think that might be a little too cliche. But man, everything from the torture scenes, which are outright brutal, to the way Reyes's spirit of vengeance talks to him and is kind of ushering him into this rebellion against the Game Master, against the entire races, and again, another front where Doom's gonna have to confront another hero. Just what his spirit of vengeance is able to accomplish surpasses any of the other spirit of vengeance that is controlled in the races. I mean, hell, it can do everything from teleportation that we learn in this issue, as well as changing the outer look of his car. And although we've seen this with other Ghost Riders, this is the first time us seeing this in this universe. And of course, at the very end, we end up seeing a ploy, or man, I guess the best way of putting it is sort of like an entrapment that the Game Master is setting up, where he's putting his little brother, Gabriel Reyes, into the race, and even gives him his own spirit of vengeance. And I would love to see what you guys think's gonna, what are your predictions that are gonna happen next? Obviously, we're gonna see him go after his little brother, but what's Robbie gonna do from here? That's what I really want to know. So let me know in the comments below. The next issue I read was Miss Deadpool and the Howling Commandos number 3. According to the synopsis, Shikla and the Howling Commandos travel to Weird World and must battle their way through the Temple of Manticore. How will the monster's metropolis survive Dracula's wrath? How, indeed. I love the fact that in this issue they are in Weird World, only because I liked not that I do like the Weird World series that's going on right now. And I'm going to continue to read that. And the fact that this takes place in that is just fun. It's a fun little world that they created, and I hope they do more in it. Another interesting point is that Frankenstein's monster can hear and see Ghost Deadpool. And does anybody notice a strange resemblance to Shikla and the Tomb Raider? I kind of see them as wearing the same outfit, but you decide. Let me know. And of course, this is all leading to Shikla and the Howling Commandos versus Dracula, as you see at the very end of the issue. This issue has been fun, seeing how the characters kind of interact with each other. The kind of espionage-like betrayals and double agents, and just this plan that's coming together in order to rise up against Dracula. And it's fun seeing Deadpool again, in all honesty. I love seeing Deadpool again. And he's got his own series going on right now, but seeing modern Deadpool is just gratifying. Even if it's in small spurts. Our next issue is Inhumans Attilan Rising number 4. According to the synopsis, Black Bolt undergoes the same interrogation that killed a Ghost Rider in number 1. Can he survive? The Resistance makes its big push against Medusa's royal rule. What I really took out of this issue, and what I really liked, was one of the big reveals is that God Doom could be using central hubs for mind controlling the citizens and the barons and the domains almost like a antenna system that he has throughout Battleworld. Of course, this is just a theory that is spoken by Black Bolt to Medusa, but it's a theory that really made Medusa question Doom's rule, as well as it brings Medusa over to Black Bolt's team, which of course we're getting the King and Queen again, right guys? So this is a very interesting predicament, and another instance where God Doom is gonna have to really, I mean, his kingdom's starting to fall. There are holes being punched into his world, and him being the god of this world is just all kinds of no bueno, guys. So yeah, I'm really excited for what's happening in this book. In the beginning, it didn't really have me, in all honesty. I didn't really know where the book was going. I kind of saw it as this I guess kind of Mission Impossible type of a feel to it. It didn't really have me at first, but now that we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the story, it's honestly getting fun for me. So I think I'm going to continue to follow this series and see where it takes me from here. The other book that I read is Planet Hulk #4. The synopsis for this book is: Devil Dinosaur says buy this comic book because rawr. And I didn't add that. That's actually in the synopsis. If you don't, I will eat you and your family. Maybe I should have said that in a dinosaur voice. Regardless, Planet Hulk #4. There's a lot of mysteries in this book that I hope are answered. Mainly being the Hulk that Steve Rogers is traveling with knows a lot more about Steve Rogers than he tends to put on. As well as the Red King, it seems. The great part is that we get Devil Dinosaur back, right? He is Steve Rogers warbound, so he will always have Steve Rogers back. The Red Hulk King, at the end of the story, proclaims that he killed Bucky Barnes. But I got a theory about this. And I encourage everyone to chime in the comments below. Tell me what you think. But what if the Hulk that Steve Rogers is traveling with, what if he's Bucky? What if the Red Hulk King is Bucky? I mean, this can add a really interesting dynamic to the entire series. And I'm interested to see where it's going to go from here. Mainly because I have my theories and I want to see how they play out. In all honesty. So I really want to see where this goes. I don't know where it's going to go. I got my theories. I encourage everyone to give theirs. Our next book that I read was Secret Wars Battleworld #4. And there's obviously in these Battleworld issues, you get 2 stories per book. Both of these stories revolve around the Silver Surfer and his different, I guess, incarnations within Battleworld. The first story being a really interesting and fresh take on the Silver Surfer Galactus kind of origin story. If not origin story, I guess a companion story between the two, or the way the two interact. It was interesting to see and fun to see this different take on the relationship, the Silver Surfer and Galactus relationship. And on top of that, the artwork was really unique and really, it was detailed in a very fun way, and I really enjoyed reading that story. The second story, though, was just utterly badass. I mean, you get to see Silver Surfer as he's meant to be, which is a cosmic force. So much of a cosmic force that not even Maestro could handle this guy. And it really makes me want to read the latest volume of Silver Surfer, because I got to catch the tail end of the story, but I didn't get to read all of it. And the Silver Surfer really is a intriguing character, and I really need to go back, read some of his stuff. especially the last volume, because I really liked that creative team that was on there. But yeah, in the second story, you just get to see Silver Surfer as a badass, one way or the other, and it was actually really fun to see as well. So we'll see what they bring with the next Battleworld issue. Another issue with taking place within Secret Wars is Years of Future Past number 4. This is the companion story of Days of Future Past, the original saga. And within this issue, you have 2 of the youngest mutants ever born. Apparently, there haven't been any other mutants born after that, which is Christina and Cameron. And they're pretty, it's pretty much survival of mutants within a world that has imprisoned them. Pretty much the world that you saw in the Days of Future Past storyline. Within this issue, man, Magneto's up to his old tricks again. Up to the same shit again, in all honesty. He was going to sacrifice Christina and Cameron as sort of martyrs for the mutant race. Again, up to his same shit. Because he felt as if the mutants had a martyr, they would have a reason to rise up. But as it turns out, Cameron kills Magneto. Because why wouldn't you? And he kills him in the most, I guess you can say, humane way. He phases, or not really phases, but he puts his fingers through Magneto's skull, which I guess is a painless way of doing it, but still kills a person. And of course, this sets Christina kind of over the edge, even though he was trying to kill her with a rebuilt Sentinel. She was still raised by him. So obviously there's still latent feelings, and now both Cameron and Christina are on 2 opposite ends of the fight. Whereas Cameron sees mutants as sort of a curse upon the planet, Christina sees them as sort of the hope, or at least a hope of being able to coexist with humanity. So let's see where this fight takes us. At first they were, star-crossed lovers, and now, man, they're gonna tear each other's throats out, it seems. Which finally brings us to the biggest book within Secret Wars, is Secret Wars number 5. Man, so much to talk about this issue. I hope you got time. So, we have young Franklin, which of course is God Doom's son, swearing vengeance for whoever killed Doctor Strange. Obviously, he doesn't know that his father killed Doctor Strange, so that's another battlefront that Doom's gonna have. Then you end up finding out, as Doctor Doom goes to visit Molecule Man, is that Molecule Man is really the power behind Battleworld. And it was Molecule Man who chose Doctor Doom, and that's what eventually led to Doctor Doom becoming God of Battleworld. And the way this happened is that, according to the story, you have the Beyonders, and obviously the Beyonders are omnipotent within the Marvel Universe. And normally they would create life, but it seems as if they had gotten bored and became fascinated with ending life within the universe. So they created Molecule Man as a sort of bomb that would take out the entire multiverse. And so there was a Molecule Man per universe. And Doom became aware of this plan and started taking each Molecule Man out within each universe. And then essentially building, as he called, a better bomb, a more perfect bomb to use against the Beyonders. And this also explains how the convergence was originally happening to begin with. If Doctor Doom was killing off each Molecule Man in each universe, that in turn would destroy that universe. And so therefore, if you remember from the prequel stories before Secret Wars, the Illuminati was noticing that a number of universes were being phased out. And this was all Doctor Doom's doing, apparently, until finally there was just the singularity of the 616 universe and the canon Marvel universe that were going to collide into each other. And as that convergence was happening, essentially, well, it's also important to note that apparently Doctor Strange stumbled upon Doom's plan, and understanding that that plan was best, because there was no stopping the Beyonders from carrying out their plan, obviously them being very godlike within this universe. So once Doctor Strange joined Doctor Doom, then you had both of them going up against the Beyonders during Convergence, using the multi-dimensional Molecule Man as a bomb against the Beyonders, not to destroy them, but to steal their power. And they were able to use Molecule Man to store it and then use that power towards building Battleworld. So you can almost say that the gods of Battleworld wasn't just Doom, it was also Stephen Strange and Molecule Man. And that's just, you've got this holy trinity. Essentially, you have a holy trinity that keeps Battleworld, or that kept Battleworld going. But now that Stephen Strange is dead, they are on shaky, very, very shaky land, and icy waters. And Owen Reese, which is the Molecule Man, he even acknowledges this. He understands that something is going to happen. He doesn't know what, but something's seriously about to go down. Another interesting part of this story, going towards the end, is that you have Valerie, which is his daughter and leader of the science division within his court, looking into this anti-doom or anti-god, or they also call it dark matter, which are these holes within Battleworld that she and her team are starting to notice. Even though Dr. Doom told her to leave it alone, she doesn't want to leave it alone because she wants to know why this, as she probably sees it, heresy and blasphemy is happening in the world. And this is going to be another aspect that's going to be unraveling Dr. Doom's hold on this world. And finally, at the very end of the book, we have Thanos at the shield wall. Who knows what the hell he's going to be doing, and more than likely it's going to be something incredibly bad. But we'll have to see next issue, and it has me at the edge of my seat, and I really want to figure it out. And this is all coming to a head point, and we only have 3 more issues left, people. 3. Let's see where this takes us. This is going to be great. And that's pretty much all the issues of note from Marvel Comics. If you have any issues that touched your imagination in any which way or form, feel free to comment down below and let us know. So that takes us to DC Comics, and there were a number of interesting issues that happened last week that I read, because we are not Marvel biased, and I swear. What can I say about this? So let's start off first with Action Comics number 43. Action Comics number 43, according to the synopsis, says, truth continues as Superman defies the Metropolis police and faces a new threat from the shadows. And I had to get really dramatic with that, because it's a dramatic story, as all these Superman stories are starting to become. But I digress. Anyways, this is Superman depowered. He's still not as strong as he used to be. This is essentially the all-new Superman that we saw after the collapse of Convergence. And he's essentially taken on an activist role within Metropolis, as you have an entire neighborhood that stands behind him, but the police are standing on the other side in opposition. And this has even led to some controversy within the real world, because here you have the all-American symbol of Superman going up against the police, and that's not heard of in America. But what's interesting about this story is that Officer Binghamton, I think that's the best way of pronouncing that. Binghamton. Officer Binghamton pushes Superman to his personal limits, and eventually Superman punches Officer Binghamton, and you end up finding out that Officer Binghamton is a shadow monster. Obviously, because the moment Superman punches a human's face, it would have cracked straight open. But instead of cracking open, this officer's face was split in fours, and there's little shadow hands and shadow teeth and shadow eyes coming out of it. Which I gotta say, I really like the artist's take on not only Superman, but on the city metropolis and the people that stand behind him. So Superman was eventually able to fight back the shadow monster, as well as having some citizens help him in pushing the monster back until it retreated. And then, of course, that's when Superman called upon the citizens to also be a Superman for their community and their city, and to sort of fight alongside him. It almost seems as if he's starting this rebellion, and that's really interesting. That's a brand new dynamic in the Superman mythos. So I'm gonna love to see where they take that from here. But the really interesting part is at the end of the story, you have the mayor speaking to a number of the officers to find out what happened in the confrontation with Superman, and it turns out that the mayor's office, maybe the entirety of City Hall, are being run by these shadow monsters. And that's one hell of a cliffhanger to leave off of. I'm really loving the fact that, we're having a more human, depowered Superman to relate to. And I'm liking where this story is going. I'm pretty much liking where all of these Superman stories are taking us. I can't wait to see what they're going to do more with the character. Although there are a number of inconsistencies, of course, some being where Superman is fully powered, some being where Superman is only partially powered. And if there's somebody out there that can explain that to me a little bit better, I would love to hear it. Because in all honesty, I don't quite know where these storylines fall in within each other. And that usually tends to be a thing within DC. But so far, I'm going to keep up with Action Comics, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do next. The next issue I read was Batman number 43. And this is me jumping back into Batman after first reading maybe the first 2 volumes of the New 52 Batman, and then reading A Death in the Family. So this is my first foray getting back into the Batman mythology, and I'm coming in whenever Batman isn't Batman anymore. Now we have Bat Gordon or Jim Man or police bat guy. Jim Gordon's the new Batman, and he's still trying to get a hang of this new mech suit. Chappie Bat that we have. No, not Chappie Bat. It's Batman. They call it Batman, but it's a mech suit of Batman that he's using, working with the city of Gotham. But apparently, Jim still doesn't have full grasp of the suit, so he goes to the alive and well Bruce Wayne to see maybe if Bruce Wayne will help him. But Bruce Wayne not only wants no part of it, he doesn't remember being Batman. And I thought this was the most curious aspect of the story, and honestly, it has me hooked. Apparently, you end up learning that Batman works with the Children's Foundation with his now girlfriend, Julie Madison. And he knows who he is. He knows he's Bruce Wayne. He's working with the Children's Foundation because he feels as if that's what he was meant to do. That's what his parents did, so that's what he's going to do. But he will not pick up his mantle, or doesn't even know about his mantle as Batman. Whenever Superman has a talk with Pennyworth, saying, with Alfred, saying that we need Bruce Wayne back, Pennyworth tells Superman that Bruce Wayne died, or at least his brain died whenever the cave collapsed on him and Joker. But it seemed as if a substance called deoncium seeped into Bruce Wayne's skull as he laid there lifeless, and then brought him back to life, but with no recollection of who he is. But that's not without lack of trying on Pennyworth's part. Apparently, Alfred told Bruce Wayne about his entire life leading up to the Batman, but doesn't tell him about the Batman. And that's whenever Bruce Wayne decides to live this life of charity and helping the city that he loves. But Alfred does show Superman Batman's final invention, which is essentially a cloning device. And what happens is that this cloning device creates individuals up to the age of 27 with all the memories of Bruce Wayne that created the Batman, in a way of having this eternal cycle of Batmen. But unfortunately, Alfred says that Bruce Wayne wasn't able to finish it. And it kind of gives the story an out. I mean, I guess you can kind of see it, right? It kind of gives the story a out to bring Bruce Wayne Batman back one way or the other. If, let's say if Superman ends up finding a way to clone, ends up finishing the technology, or they have to implant the memories back into the current Bruce Wayne. But there's a Batman making device, apparently. What we also see in the story is Jim Gordon actually going into the field not in his mech suit and going up against the Devil Pig gang. I find this interesting because Jim Gordon has a gun that shoots batarangs. And he shoots them directly in their face if he has to. I don't know if this is lethal, but it looks painful. That's for damn sure. But in this issue, we also get, and this is the character that's on the cover of this issue, we also get an understanding of who Mr. Bloom is. Apparently, he comes to the Penguin looking to sell his seeds, which apparently give superhuman powers over to those who ingest the seed. The Penguin turns him down and shoots Mr. Bloom directly in the head, and then Mr. Bloom stabs the Penguin directly in the gut. And not just stabs with a knife or a sword or a really pointy umbrella. No. We're talking like he stabs him with his elongated, creepy, spider-like, sharp fingers. So apparently Mr. Bloom partakes of his own substances and is no longer fully human. That's for damn sure. But needless to say, me reading Batman again is going to keep me reading Batman. I mean, I love Scott Snyder's take on the Batman mythology, and Greg Capullo, Greg Capullo art is great. I mean, I've liked his art ever since Spawn, so I'm definitely gonna continue to read this series and see where it takes us. Speaking of new series getting back into, we also have DC Comics Bombshells #1. According to the synopsis of this series, it states, the ultra-popular statues from DC Collectibles come to life in their own ongoing comic book series. Learn the new story behind this alternate reality where the Second World War is fought by superpowered women on the front lines and behind the scenes. It all begins in the stories of Batwoman, Wonder Woman, and Supergirl. So this is issue number 1 of Bombshells. This issue covers the life of Batwoman. And apparently Batwoman in this universe starts off as a baseball player. This is World War II, so all the men are overseas fighting a war, and the women have to take on the male roles in this. Well, actually, that's pretty much what happened in reality. But in this alternate quote-unquote reality, women have to take on the jobs that the men left behind. And these women who are playing baseball have to do it anonymously with masks on. Otherwise, they can run into real troubles. You know, it's kind of looked down upon. And apparently Batwoman plays for the Gotham Knights. I guess that's kind of hitting the nail right on the head. But they pretty much stay true to Batwoman's character. She has a relationship with the female investigator. She was originally in the army and fought in a number of wars before she became a baseball player. And now she's currently fighting crime in her anonymous state with the Gotham Knights. The artwork in this is really stellar. The story is really fun to read. The dialogue between the characters are completely natural, and you get a feeling that you're back in the 1940s. And at the end of this book, it's Amanda Waller who calls upon Batwoman and her girlfriend to help her stop the war, as she puts it. So that should be a really interesting... Well, I mean, it's not only interesting, it's entertaining. It's downright entertaining seeing these characters revisioned through the guise of the 1940s, where really most of these characters started, well, except for Batwoman and Supergirl, but definitely Wonder Woman. or at least she was portrayed in that time period, or maybe 10 years after. But I'm really liking the series, and I'm gonna follow it along as they follow the stories of Wonder Woman and Supergirl after this. So I'll be picking it up and checking it out for sure. The next issue that I read was Starfire number 3. Of course, this is the creative team of Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. This is the same writing team that's behind Harley Quinn. So obviously, you know, there's going to be funny in there. You know, there's going to be woman empowerment. And you know that it's going to be extremely fun to read. So according to the synopsis, Starfire picks up the pieces and finds her new home in the aftermath of the storm. But while our hero helps her community heal, a creature from the underworld emerges to threaten all she hopes to protect. What is this creature's hidden motive? Why does it seem to get bigger every time Starfire punches it? What's interesting about this story, I mean, you get to see the everyday life of Starfire, which is always fun. You know, her learning how to grocery shop, her trying to learn the dating customs of Earth, and that's always entertaining. But this issue also introduces a new superheroine named Attilan, which I'm not too familiar with, and I would really appreciate if somebody listening can maybe explain this character to me. But she was originally working at a waitress at at a restaurant that Starfire was eating at and getting hit on, of course. And it turns out that the underworld monster is after Attilan. And apparently this monster absorbs energy, everything from bullets to energy blasts to punches. And that's where it leaves us off on the cliffhanger. And I can't wait to see how Starfire and Attilan decide to handle this monster. But that's the end of DC Comics. If any other DC Comics came out that you want to recommend to either me or anybody else that hosts the podcast, feel free to recommend and why. Same thing with Marvel Comics. I'm always open up to reading new books as long as it has interesting stories and characters. So feel free to suggest. As far as our next category, which is independent issues, last week, I believe on the 8th, Saga number 30 did come out. It's a great series being written by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I recommend anybody reading this. If you're not familiar with comics, if you like sci-fi, if you like drama, if you like a little bit of sexy in there, if you like warring factions, I mean, this story practically has it all. And this is like comic book crack for me. Anybody who's familiar with the story, I highly recommend everyone to read it, obviously. But what's happening in this issue is that you have Marco and his crew, which is Prince Robot the Fourth and little cute Gus, crash land on a planet where Gus last sensed Alana, their child, and Marco's mother. Within this issue, Alana's being held captive by the last revolutions. They were looking to trade Alana's little girl over to a side within this war. But as soon as that side found out that they were working with a robot, they kind of called the deal off. And they were going to kill the robot who was with him, which is Dingo. Dingo is also the individual who stole Prince Robot the Fourth's child and killed the prince's wife as well. But the tables got turned, and the last revolution instead were killed. Dingo was able to steal some fuel from their ship in order to fuel Alana's tree ship, and he instructs the grandmother and Alana's little girl to go to the tree ship while he goes to get Alana. Of course, some communications were lost during this raid that was happening, kind of this insurgent within the ship. Alana got separated from everyone else. She and Dingo end up meeting up, going out of the ship to the tree ship to meet up with the grandmother and the little girl. The grandmother and the little girl end up not being there, still in the ship. There were still some people alive from the last revolution. They end up hopscotching, which is this universe's version of hitting warp speed, I guess. So now Alana is separated from not only her little girl, but Marco's mother. Again. And then, of course, Marco and Prince Robot meet up with Alana and Dingo. Prince Robot shoots Dingo directly in the head, killing him, and in turn getting his little baby back. And Marco and Alana is reunited at the very end of the book. But of course now they have to go after their little girl and Marco's mother. So, man, I just can't say enough about how much I love this series, and I recommend everyone reading it. Even if you hate sci-fi, screw it, just read it anyways. It's completely worth it. But yeah, this is a great series. We're in issue 30 now, so if you haven't read it yet, you have a bit to catch up, but trust me, it's not going to be nearly as bad as that sounds. Feel free to look it up and see if you like it. Alright, next we have pop culture news. We'll first start off with movies. The first bit of news being that photos and cast have been revealed for Star Wars Rogue One during D23, which is Disney's almost convention. The photos themselves are pretty sparse. There isn't that much. I mean, it does show a little bit of the cast in the hangar bay of X-Wing fighters. The tone of the photos look pretty dark. So this is going to be an interesting movie for the anthology, for sure. So this is going to be an interesting movie for the anthology to lead off with. I don't know if I'm terribly excited for this anthology series, but if they can add more to the mythology, I'm interested to see it. Next, we have a director confirmed for Star Wars Episode 9, who is going to be Colin Trevorrow, who was the director for Jurassic World. Obviously, the studio saw that he did a really good job with Jurassic World. Good being as in he ranked in the money. I don't know if it was the director that ranked in the money or the franchise, but one way or the other, Disney saw something in this guy, so they attached him to the next Star Wars film. Do you think that Jurassic World warranted this director taking over a Star Wars or something as monumental as a Star Wars movie? Or do you think that taking on a franchise like Jurassic Park was telling enough to the movie studios that he can handle a Star Wars franchise as well? Let me know in the comments below. Next, at D23, they did show footage of Civil War and production art for Doctor Strange. Obviously, none of this was released to the public, which really sucks. Nothing has been leaked yet. If you guys could leak it, I would really appreciate it. I mean, no, I never look at leaked footage or anything to that degree. But from reports of people that were actually at the event, they are saying that Doctor Strange's costume looks spot on to the comic books. If you liked the comic book costume, you're definitely gonna like Doctor Strange's. And that Benedict Benedict Cumberbatch looks the part, and I can't wait to see him in it. In all honesty, as much as I give the actor shit, I think he's a really good actor. I think he's gonna do a lot of justice to this role. I've never heard him with an American English accent. I assume he can do one. If he did one during Star Trek, I'm sorry for not watching that. Don't be mad at me. But I think he can really bring something to this role. And as far as the footage that they released for Civil War, they did say there was comic relief in the way of Ant-Man, that you get a look at the Winter Soldier, that you get a look at the dynamics of some of the teams. I guess they released a little bit of footage of the actual teams out there. There have been a number of reports on who's going to take whose side, but I'm trying not to read them because I kind of want to be surprised. Right? It's a little weird for me too. So, we'll see what happens in that area once more news comes out, or once somebody finally decides to leak something, as long as they're not too afraid of Disney. Next, there was a couple of photos released through Instagram of actors from Suicide Squad tattooing each other in Harley's tattoo parlor, and they tattooed the word squad, which is SKWAD. I think that was the spelling of it. I would never have, I barely trust regular tattoo artists to touch my skin, much less some actor that has never done it ever. It'd be like allowing an infant to cut you with a knife. You just don't do things like that. But hey, if you're into that type of thing, I guess it's a cool story. Maybe. I guess they really have a lot of faith in this movie if they're going to be tattooing it on their arms. Wow, tattoos are really permanent, guys. But we'll see whenever the movie comes out. You know, as much shit as I give this movie, I am excited to see it. I'm excited to see Jared Leto's Joker. I'm excited to see Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I'm excited to see Will Smith's shit, I forgot the character that he's playing. Deathstroke? Something? I'm gonna get so much shit for not knowing this. Anyways, I'm really excited for this. So we will see what happens with the movie. And at the moment, according to speculation, it's looking decent. So I guess that's something to look forward to. Next, we have TV pop culture news. The first bit of news being that a new Daredevil suit for season 2 has been leaked. And by new, we mean an upgraded looking suit. According to the photo, you do see the suit in a wooden box that Matt Murdock is storing the suit in, and there are noticeable differences. So maybe Daredevil will go through a couple of prototypes before he finally decides on one, and maybe we can get rid of that awkward looking mask. I mean, the suit looks cool. It looks really cool. Just that mask is super awkward, guys. Next, we get a first look at Atom Smasher from season 2 of The Flash. This is, I think, one of the first masked supervillains within the Flash's TV universe, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, aside from Reverse Flash, we haven't had too many villains that wear a costume. So this is an interesting take on, or at least an interesting turn in the Flash mythology. And finally, in TV news, Gotham casts a female Firefly, which originally helmed by a male. Now we're gonna get a female Firefly, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Firefly did not need. It didn't matter whether Firefly was a male or female. So do what you want, Gotham. I'm not really watching you anyways. I kid. I have watched a number of shows from Gotham. I'm just not terribly, what's the word for it, excited for it. If it wasn't, you've heard me preach this before, guys. If it wasn't in the Batman universe, I would probably like it more than likely. But it's in Batman universe, all kinds of goofy timelines. It's essentially Bryan Singer's Batman universe, and I don't know how I feel about it. But I will watch it. I'm gonna watch it, guys. I will be able to report on it whenever the time comes. But that takes care of our pop culture news. There wasn't too much that happened last week, and hopefully we'll have more to report this coming week. Which finally brings us to our question of the week. So the question of the week is, have comic book company events or storylines become too predictable in the resolutions to hold up status quos? Or do you think that they actually bring a change to their comic book universes? This is prompted by what we're seeing in Batman. We have this magical device that Bruce Wayne was working on that could or could not revive the original Bruce Wayne Batman. And, if anything, that could be a little predictable unless they decide to change the game. But you also have events like Secret Wars, where apparently we're going to get a whole new, all different Marvel Universe afterwards. So I would like to know your opinion on this. Do you think that their resolutions are a little bit too predictable? Or do you think that they actually do change the status quo? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. I would also like to give a shout out to the Fizani Ferengi. God, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, buddy. He actually commented on last week's question of the week, which he brings very valid points to the argument. This was the argument about whether or not superhero comics or not superhero comics, but superhero movies can become fatigued. And he says that superhero comics can get fatigued, just like any other genre within movie blockbusters. But he does think that each one of these movies can carry their own universes. He brings to point like Valiant's Bloodshot that they have going with Sony, which is a really great point. He also brings a very, very controversial idea that the X-Men should not go to the Marvel Universe, because how are you supposed to convey a world that hates you in a universe that openly accepts superheroes. And I hate to admit it, Fazani, the Fazani, but you might have a point, man. And I hate your guts for it, bro. No, I don't hate your guts. You do have a damn good point. I can't really argue against that. I mean, how are you supposed to convey the type of hate and prejudice that they face? But god damn it, Fox, you really need to get your shit straight and get it right. But again, a huge thank you to the Fazani. We really appreciate your guys' comments, and we hope that we see more of them down below. But that ends another issue of Panel to Panel. If you do like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for new podcasts every Friday. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. And of course, all those links are in the description below. So be sure to join us next time, and I will see you next issue.